you've got to become a storyteller. Some of you will say, I'm not an expert at telling stories and telling yarns. You're not great public speakers. That is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a clear, simple, concise way to convey the value of the ideas that are in your head. I think it's one of the most underappreciated skills in business. It's one of the skills that we did talk about explicitly at Microsoft. And if I could wish you one new capability to go build, it would be the capability of storytelling. You better stay on top of yourself and really measure. Unless people measure themselves, you don't get any better. You cannot succeed unless you are really holding yourself accountable and owning outcomes. Believe me, I've seen plenty of people at Microsoft, various places in the tech industry, brilliant people, who when it came time to execute and actually count success, maybe not so much. Maybe not so much. In order to do that, you have to actually know what the goal is. If the goal was to get to 450 million users and then sell to Facebook, WhatsApp did a hell of a job, right? I mean that. It's a hell of a job at 19 billion, 55 people. That's a hell of a job. But you have to decide, what outcome do you want? Bill Gates was offered $7.5 million to sell all of Microsoft in 1979. It would have been a rich guy if he had taken it. Richer if he didn't, but a rich guy. But even putting that aside, the impact on society wouldn't have been the same. We had discussions with Facebook about buying Facebook, but Zuckerberg knew what he viewed as an outcome that he really desired and was willing to put in the blood, sweat, and tears, just like we were. So execution and measurement are hugely important, and yet people let themselves off the hook. In life, you want to be your own quarterback. See the playing field. Many people like to get myopically tied into one thing, and they have a hard time stepping back. Being CEO of Microsoft is this amazing, wonderful opportunity. Turns out everybody in the world wants to tell you what to do, and they'll educate you. You want to learn about any field of technology? As long as you don't act like a know-it-all, somebody will educate you. And you have a unique ability to see broadly across the technology field. Right now, I'm spending a lot of my time studying government and the economy. Turns out the number of places you can actually read about the totality of government in the United States is almost zero. Have fun. You're not going to have fun every minute of every day. I don't care what job you take, any job you take. I don't care how well rewarded you are. I don't care anything about that. It won't happen all the time, but you better be having fun in what you do. The truth is, a lot of success won't just come from ideas and being hardcore and being in the weight room. A lot of your success is going to come from luck. I know that was true in my case. And I know, frankly, it's the case of almost every successful entrepreneur I met in the tech business in the last 34 years. People will make it seem like it was the grand master plan in all cases of an all-knowing and all-seeing genius. That and a lot of luck is what really leads to success. So given that you're going to have a lot of luck, you better be having a lot of fun. Don't take the next job or don't do the next startup because you should. Do it because you want to. Because you can think of nothing better, more exciting, more energizing to get up every day and go do than whatever it is that you selected. Be patient and be patient when you get the first signs that it's not fun, because time must be measured. Constantly be improving yourself, because only by improving yourself will you maybe find that next idea. I'm sure there are many people in this audience who'd like to do a startup, and yet the first law of doing a startup is you got to have an idea. But if you're having fun, if you're building capabilities, if you're treasuring your time, if you're building your muscle and being hardcore, the good ideas will come to you. But you've got to decide how to think about the idea. Anybody here seen an older movie called Thelma and Louise by any chance? It's a story of with Susan Sarandon and Gina Davis, and they're these two women who seem normal at the start of the movie, and by the end, they're driving their car off a cliff. I won't fill in the details, but it was Brad Pitt's first movie, for those of you who care. But you could say, you know, they really ran fast in that. By the end of the movie, they were running fast. I'm just not sure I would want to follow them off the cliff. And yet a lot of people say, fall in love with their first idea and just keep at it. And don't stop and say, okay, what are other ideas? Are there better ideas? Are there other ways to think about this idea? And yet in business, and I don't care whether you're as big as Microsoft is today or as small as Microsoft was the day I started, ideas matter. 2 tricks made the whole company, basically. And the third trick is out there waiting to be invented, or invented by a startup, or a business that you'll join, or a larger business that can do certain kinds of innovation. But ideas matter. Second, you better be passionate about whatever you want to do in life. This is not just true startups, big companies, small. Passion matters. Too many people don't really get revved up and fired up and consumed, heart, body, and soul by what they do. And yet I find that sort of really sad. You really want to do something you can fall in love with, particularly coming right out of college. I did it. You know, oh, my resume. I got to work on my resume. I got to take a job where I can learn, blah, blah, blah. Because we're in the weight room, baby. We're getting good. We're getting to know what it really takes to make small form factor devices. We're really understanding what's capable, what's possible in the hardware. If you don't get in the weight room, you can't win the next generation. You can't. If Apple had not been a hardware company with some software, they couldn't have come back in the generation of the iPod, even with Steve Jobs returning. If we hadn't built the muscle that we've built in search, we'd have no possibility of doing some of the things that we're doing. It's a lesson that I think very few businesses, companies, governments, they're not willing to do things that don't lead to immediate productivity. And then I would say last but not least, you guys got to be hardcore. I've tried to come up with better words: tenacious, bold, long-term, and I kind of mean all of those. You just got to be hardcore. People will encourage you to give up on everything. People have some notion that success startups, boom, they're just immediately successful. That is not true. I could say that more forcefully, but I won't. That is not true. Most startups, most anything, you work at it 5, 10, 15 years before things really emerge. It's the exception that emerges in 2 or 3 years. And you've got to make a big long-term bet. You've got to have an idea that matters. You've got to stay after it. You've got to measure yourself, but you have got to be hardcore. Optimistic for sure, realistic for sure, measuring yourself, tuning your idea, but you just have to build the new capabilities that you need, but stay hardcore and committed for the future. I think back on 34 years of working for companies of all sizes, and without using the PowerPoints I had done, that's what I remember that I wanted to share with you. I will say that when you're all done with something, it's sort of an amazing thing. 34 years, other than my family, I put my heart, soul, I have basically hardly any hobbies, a little bit of golf, but hardly any hobbies, not much that I do except work and be with my family.